I'm Hannah Judson, and welcome to the show. Today, Heather Nova is joining me from Bermuda. Heather is a prolific songwriter, artist, and poet with many accolades and significant achievements to date. She has released many outstanding records over her career and has probably most recently released the best one yet. So some things keep getting better, I would say. So Heather, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the compliment. That's good to know. And I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's nice. I'm in Paris. It's nice that you're in Bermuda. It's great that we can have a conversation. So tell us a little bit about where you are.
I'm at home in Bermuda, which is where I grew up. And I moved to London in the UK when I was straight out of college and lived there and started my career there. And started touring the world, which was amazing. And as I was touring, I was always looking for the perfect place to settle down because I never felt like London was my permanent home. I love nature too much. So I kept looking and thinking, oh, wow, Byron Bay, Australia, that's amazing. Or, Italy's amazing. But in the end, you know what? Everybody comes home here. It's like there's nothing like it. And for me, I love the nature, the water. And the warm, sticky air and all the flowers.
Yeah, it's really hard when you grow up around the ocean on the coast, it's hard to live away from it. It's something that becomes part of your your saline solution in your being. It's hard to. So you were in London at the beginning of your career. So do you think that's would you recommend that as a launching pad to a young artist or musician?
I certainly would recommend it in the 90s, but I don't know. I don't know if it's the same anymore.
Yeah.
30 years ago, but it was absolutely the perfect hub of music at that time. I mean, it was just so much going on. I mean, I'd go down the road, 10 minutes walk and see, The Verve or PJ Harvey or Tori Amos or all these people who were my contemporaries at that time and were just playing little gigs in town.
Yeah.
And that was exciting. And for me, coming from this small island, it was so important to be in a big city with lots of music because I needed to up my game.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you move to somewhere like that. Because if you stay in a small town or an island, there's nothing to push you. There's nothing to make you reach higher. And so for me, living there and gigging there was the thing that, and seeing all these other artists was the thing that really pushed me to be my very, very best, I think.
Wow, that's great. So that is an interesting start. When you're talking about that, I was thinking, do you think that the arrival of the internet and music online and streaming and all this stuff is going to change those sort of centers of music? Do you think people will be staying on the island more?
Well, that's why I say I don't know if I don't know if I could recommend it now. I'm sure it is still amazing there, but I don't know what the scene is. I don't know, like you say, if there's that same pulse and gigs happening all the time, and there probably is. But yes, I imagine things have already changed drastically, for better and for worse. I try not to be one of those the internet ruined music. Although it took away our livelihood in a large sense. I mean, people don't buy CDs anymore and everything's free on the internet. So that's been tough. But at the same time, I mean, look, like you could reach out to me on Facebook and say, hey, you want to have a chat? And there's this beautiful kind of more open communication, more connection with people. And so that's a positive, and I think you have to always find the glass half full. That's my philosophy with life.
Yeah, for sure. So you're in Bermuda, and can you imagine spending the rest of your life there, or do you need to island hop or get back to the mainland?
So once I finished on that search, we're looking for the place I wanted to be, and I realized it was back where I started. I found a home, and I had a baby, and I was suddenly like rooted, And I'm so. I think for me the clue to why that is that I wake up every morning and I feel an immense amount of gratitude, and I just feel like I'm not itching to go anywhere. I
Yeah.
love just walking outside and being in this incredible nature, and it fulfills me, and I feel creative here. And so I'll stay here forever. I mean, I'll travel, but
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
stay here forever.
Yeah. So it is your hub. So you have a studio, and in your studio you have a music studio, I'm assuming, but you also paint. Is that
Yeah,
right?
so I have a room. I don't even know if I'd call it a studio. That sounds too fancy for what it is, but
Mhm.
but yeah, I do. I paint and draw, and that's something that I've always done, alongside music. I actually went to art school. I
Mhm.
went to the Rhode Island School of Design. So at that point, I didn't know if I was going to do visual arts with my life, or I majored in filmmaking as well. And it was kind of through the process of being in art school where I started to give more validity to my music, because I was making these little Super 8 films. And I started realizing that the part that was exciting me the most was making the soundtracks. And it got to the point where I was actually creating songs and soundtracks before I was creating the visuals. And, before that, I'd kind of been, I would say, a closet songwriter. I always wrote songs since I was 10.
Yeah.
But it was something almost like breathing. It was something that was so natural to me that I almost didn't give it much credence, because it was just part of me. It's part of what
Yeah.
I did. And I was not trained. I wasn't trained to play the guitar. I got like a Cat Stevens songbook and learned some chords.
Yeah.
And my parents' friends showed me, picking patterns and chords. And it was like the guitar was my tool. As soon as I had some chords, I started writing songs. And I did it to relax, and I did it to find connection with myself. I did it to understand my own emotions. And so
Mhm.
it was just kind of a process that was very much a part of my daily life. And when I was in art school, I started to realize, oh, it's not only that, it's something that is my passion. And I would love to be able to go out there and do something with it, because I just realized that it was actually something special.
Yeah.
And I also realized how much I loved to sing, and how the process of singing in itself was not only gratifying and felt so vital, but also the few times that I was not too shy to sing in front of other people, they were always so taken with it, and
Yeah.
so mesmerized, and told me that my voice was something special, which I hadn't realized at all. So I
Interesting.
I kind of just, what happened was I majored in filmmaking, and at the end of art school, I started with my, contemporaries. I started applying to jobs in the film industry, like working on sets, and I did one job, and I just hated it. It wasn't creative enough for me. It was too,
Yeah.
everybody has a small role, and it wasn't, when I'd been in college, I liked the editing suite, because that was when you bring things together. You bring the emotion with the music and the cuts and everything. But when I realized, oh, out in the world of filmmaking, it's not going to give me what I need to feel
Yeah.
creative. And it was at that point, and I think when you're like 23 or whatever, you kind of, things don't hold you back that much. And I didn't think why I shouldn't try to do this. I just thought I want to be a singer-songwriter, and I thought I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I just went for it.
Wow. That's amazing. So, yeah, that's great. So, yeah, there at that point in time, there's nothing holding you back. Yeah. So that's lovely. So in your creative approach to songwriting, is it related to your creative approach to writing poetry and making paintings and other creative things you do, or is it really sort of a separate process?
So it's both. They're really separate processes in the way that they work within me, but they're driven by the same force, I guess, which is a need to make something.
Yeah.
I just want to make something beautiful, and that gives me this incredible sense of being, like sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I like making beautiful things. So a song is like I'm pulling something out of the air, a feeling or a moment or an observation, and create that process of creativity just fills me with a sense of purpose. But I would say that the songwriting is what comes the most naturally to me. And the thing that just flows, because melodies are mysterious to me. They just come out of nowhere, out of thin air.
Yeah.
And it's never like I sit down and write a melody as in, like that's a C, let's go up here, or let's, they just come. And you're a songwriter, so you probably understand this. But it's not an effort, you know. It's almost like a little gift that lands in your lap. And when you receive a gift, you need to honor that and go with it and see where it takes you. Yeah. And that's what I do with songs.
Yeah, that's nice. I remember once after a show in Maine, a friend of mine who I grew up with, who had never heard me sing before, asked me, how do you get the melody? And I had no answer. I was like, I have no idea. So where'd this come from?
And the other question that I get a lot is, what do you write first, the melody or the lyrics? And I don't know about you, but for me, they come together. It's like,
exactly.
It's just a line comes, you know, and it's got a tune and it's got words. And then that's not the whole song, of course. That's just a line or two or three or four. And then comes the work part, and you sit down and you kind of have this balancing act of bringing your intellect to it, but also allowing it to flow where it wants to go. So I find that really fascinating, and especially because after all these years of doing it, I still don't have a formula. And I think that's what's beautiful about songwriting is you can't kind of confine it to a formula. You just have to stay open and listen and honor that. You know, that's why there's a name for it, the muse. It's real.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because so much has been written about the formula, you know, the way to write a hit song, the way to like all these different approaches that you can possibly take to produce a song. Yeah. But I think that, you know, songs at their best, songs that really make people feel something, you know, a song that really hits it home. There is a level of mystery in the whole process.
Yeah, and you're right. Of course, there are formulas, and so the way I, you know, for pop music or something, but the way I sort of see it is there's the craft of songwriting, which, as you say, there are, you know, okay, you need the verse, the chorus, and here if you bring the bridge in now, but then there's the kind of the spirit of songwriting, and that's the part that you can't quantify. But I think that the craft, that innate kind of knowing of when you want a change to happen in the melody, you know, when you want to go to a bridge like that, those things, that is instilled in us, I believe, when we're very young. So I think that one of the reasons I became a good songwriter is that my parents had records playing 24/7 in our home that were amazing singer-songwriters, you know, like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and Cat Stevens and Neil Young and the Beatles. And so I think I was infused with a kind of songwriting sensibility on a subconscious level, so that when I write a song, I have that in me, knowing.
Yeah. You've got the greats to draw on. So those of you,
you know, not like, oh, I want this to sound like that. It's just that it's that informs my, informs the form. Yeah.
Nice. Very good. So for those of you who are joining us live, thanks for joining us. This is the Hannah Judson Beat. We've got a few questions in the chat area. So hi, Talia from San Diego and Andre from the Netherlands. So Andre asks, are all of your songs autobiographical or also about other people?
Yeah, most of them are autobiographical. Hi, Andre. But because that's where I come from. I come from a place of emotion when I write. Yeah. So it's often autobiographical, but every now and then I project into another either imagined or real character. And I mean, an example of that is when I wrote this song about Amelia Earhart, which is called I Miss My Sky. And so I actually really enjoy doing that because it's like a vacation from myself. Yeah. And it's a really interesting exercise to try to imagine someone's emotion and try to put yourself in someone's shoes. Yeah. And So I'm trying to think of other examples. I think I mean, I remember when I was writing Someone New with Escobar, with Daniel from Escobar, and that was a song I was projecting into because it wasn't really something that was happening in my life.
Yeah.
But he had started this song, and so to get involved in that, I needed to imagine. So I'm pretty good at doing that. I think I always thought it would be interesting to do a film soundtrack because I enjoy getting inside the character.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So with your songs being highly autobiographical, obviously not all of them, do you find that are your songs like specific? Would you say, okay, that was when I was going through that. No, this song is when I was going through that. Or do you just simply draw upon your experience and your emotion and pull it out when you're writing?
I mean, I think they're completely connected, so if something's happening, I will write about it. But actually often I'll write in the aftermath. I sometimes think when you're right in the thick of it, it's hard to really write, and you almost have to come out the other side in order to be able to reflect and write on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. We've got another question from Chris Pittman. He asks, which artists would you say were your strongest influences, both as a songwriter and a singer?
Well, I think the ones I mentioned growing up with, I think were probably my strongest influences, the folk singers of the 60s and 70s, both as songwriters. I don't know, as singers, again, singing is one of those things that, I sort of just comes from within, and I don't know if I was so influenced, although probably in the early days, it was a combination of Joni Mitchell and Kate Bush, because those two artists were, their voices reached me in such an emotional way. And I think with Kate Bush especially, it opened up this world of how your voice could be an instrument and you could use it in kind of crazy ways and just expressive. And I would, take sections of songs and just go on a vocal little sojourn that didn't necessarily have words, but was super expressive. And, even artists like Liz Fraser from the Cocteau Twins, I loved what she did because it was just all about the emotion in the vocal, no words. So, those would be some of my influences.
Oh, nice.
And as songwriters, I don't know. It's like, I do think the influence came more early on, and that later it just was like about tuning into what was coming through me, coming to me, through me, and honoring that. So no conscious influences when it comes to the writing process.
So very good. So we are, historically speaking, it seems like we're coming towards the beginning of the end of our pandemic chapter historically. For you, was the pandemic something separate and different, or did your life sort of continue in the same?
Sort of continued the same, because when I'm not on tour, I'm very much at home. And it's for me very much about alone time, and my son goes away now to school, so I'm used to being on my own. I have a lot of friends who I see, and I have family around and stuff, but actually being at home was not that unusual for me. But so what was hard for me was having the tour postponed last year. And because, it's something that I look forward to, it's something that I work towards. It's my income as well. But most of all, it's like creatively, I was just like, oh, so I'm not going on tour. And that felt like a big, long, empty space to me, like everyone else. And I did the predictable, learned how to make sourdough bread, and and at first I had this kind of after like a few months of the because we had lockdown here and stuff. A few months of that when I hadn't like learned a new language and I hadn't written an album, and I started to have this kind of guilt, like, oh, I should have accomplished something huge with all this time. But I realized that what was really actually valuable to me during that period was rest. And that might sound strange, but it was like this enforced rest. Like I wasn't all getting hyped up about going on tour and rehearsals and stress and all that. I was like, oh, now I just can chill, And so as I said in the beginning, I try to look at things glass half full, and I just try to look at this as this is my time to really just be quiet and be in nature even more, and go inward. And when I let go of that kind of like I need to be producing something, I actually did start writing more, and I started painting more, and that's been really nice. But yeah, just that sense of let's look at this as a kind of a gift of just being still,
Yeah.
And it almost gave me this sense of like, wait, how have we become so international? All the time, everyone's flying everywhere. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And then you saw those maps of no flights in the air compared to how it normally is.
Yeah.
It makes you think about,
yeah,
I need to stay closer to home. Like maybe that's more natural to human beings.
Yeah.
So
I do think that what you described of this feeling of learning a new language and writing an album and all these things we're supposed to be doing with all this free time, and the sort of the realization that it's kind of hard. I think that there's going to be a name for that, because I think a lot of people experience that suddenly it wasn't as easy as it should have been. And definitely there were gifts that became apparent for those who saw them. But definitely, I think that one of the gifts was in the sky. I loved seeing no airplanes, like quiet skies. I mean, which is horrible for the economy and horrible for business and horrible for travelers. But I was thinking the Earth must like it.
Oh, I mean, the carbon emissions, everything. I mean, there were scientific facts about how wonderful it was for the planet. So yeah, absolutely, that's a big one.
Yeah. So you have found your way through this period of time really well, it sounds like. So what are you working on specifically?
So I'm working on different things. I'm always writing, and I've been painting a lot, and I've also been working. For the first time in my life, I decided to record some covers. I've always thrown them in here and there, live or on a B-side, but apart from recording Wicked Game on one of my albums, I've never really done that before. So I started, but I really love the process of interpreting someone else's song. But because I've always had so many songs of my own, I thought, that's for people who don't write songs.
Right.
But I've changed my approach on that, because there's this wonderful kind of challenge to interpretation and taking something out of context. And the songs I've enjoyed covering in the past have been ones like Staying Alive, or where you take something completely that's like got this big, that's disco production, and you say, wait a second, what's in that lyric? Like, I think there's some emotion in there that I'm not feeling in the original production. Let me take it down to just an acoustic guitar and a cello or something. And it's so fascinating what you can extract in different versions of songs. Because I always say that songs are like they're kind of naked, right? And then production is like the clothes that you put on them. So you can dress songs up in all kinds of different outfits. It's still the same song under there, but the way you receive it is completely different.
That's a great metaphor for production. So do you have a team around you on the island in terms of your producer, or what is your process there?
So no, not really. So interestingly enough, when I want to do some recordings, I go to my ex-husband, because he's the only really top engineer producer here, and so that we're friends, so it's fine. And we still, it's easy to work with him because we worked so much together over the years. I mean, if there wasn't a pandemic, I would probably go overseas and record, like I did for my recent album Pearl. I went and recorded with British producer Youth, who was the producer of my early album, and we actually did it in Spain. But because we're locked down, there's no travel. I've recorded some stuff recently with Felix. Nice. And another great, benefit of the internet, of course, is that you can now record remotely with people. So I had my amazing cellist, Midori, who's in London, and I recorded a song and just sent it to her and said, "Can you put it down and we can chat about it over the phone and stuff?" And it works.
Yeah. That is amazing. So you also started a Patreon site during the pandemic.
Yes.
How's that going?
That was a really interesting process for me because when I heard about it last year and I kind of thought about it, and then my tour was canceled, and I thought, okay, you gotta think outside the box, be creative with how you're gonna carry on and keep music sustainable. And I looked into it, and I was very cautious about it. It took me like 3 months to kind of finally launch it because it's kind of putting yourself out there in a way. I'm kind of old school in the sense that, when I started out, you didn't have that direct kind of communication. There's a little bit of a distance between you and your fans.
Yeah.
I don't know if the word fans, but you know what I mean. And I love meeting people after the shows, and I love meeting people at the merch stand. And that was what started to change that for me, was that, oh, these are wonderful people. I'd like to get to know them. I love to hear their stories. And what I really loved was hearing the stories of what my music had meant in their lives. So I remember, this one woman said to me, "Oh, I gave birth to your record." And I was like, whoa, okay. I've had married record and birthdays and even funerals, but giving birth, that was like, wow, that's incredible. Someone was born to Siren. Like,
wow, yeah.
So I love hearing those stories because it's what keeps me going. It's what inspires me to keep making. I mean, I'm always going to write songs, but it's what inspires me to keep putting out records. Is knowing that there's a connection, knowing that there's meaning to other people when they hear my songs. And I think I'm getting off track a bit from your question, but I'm going down a tangent.
No, it's good.
But one of the most significant examples of that was when I early on wrote my song Island, which was a song about the most harrowing experience in my life, which was going through domestic violence, and something so forbidden, something I couldn't talk about at the time. There was so much shame around it. I couldn't tell my parents it was happening. I couldn't tell my friends. I felt like it was my fault. I was just very, very alone. And when I finally got out of that situation and I wrote this song, I again thought, oh, this is just for me to write for myself. And then it turned into kind of a good song. And I was like, maybe I'll put this on my album. And that step of doing that was the biggest learning experience for me, because what I realized in doing that was that your truth will not only set you free when you share it, but it will set others free. So when I wrote that song and released it, I got so many letters from women saying, thank you for writing that. That's my story. That happened to me, and it helped me so much to hear that you've been through that. And so that's the beauty of music, right? Is sharing our experience of being human, whether it's beautiful or ugly. We need to share it. We need to be raw and honest, and that's where we are doing something of value, I think.
Yeah.
And that's where community is created as well. So, I mean, that's really an extension. So doing Patreon feels like an extension of that, just like creating community and creating connection and honoring the people listening to the music and hearing from them and sharing more with them, and not being afraid, not being afraid to be open and to share just as I am in my music. Yeah. And so I'm actually really enjoying it. I'm only a month and a half into my Patreon, but I am really enjoying that kind of community connection.
Nice. So Andre asks a question about Patreon specifically. He says, many of the other musicians that I support on Patreon feel that Patreon is a safer environment and are more open on this medium. Do you have the same feeling?
Absolutely. It does feel safe. And that surprised me. Like I said, it took me 3 months to launch it because I was like, oh, don't want to do this. I'm a little nervous. And now I'm so glad I did it, because it feels like a really nice, safe environment, and it's a good vibe. I really like
it's neat. Yeah. So the people that cross the threshold of your Patreon account are really interested in what you're doing. They're not just bystanders.
And I think that's a great point. It's like those are the people who really care and have a vested interest in the music, and it's important to them, important enough to pay a subscription. I mean, that's big, so that shows, that's significant, that that it's meaningful to them. And so I think that is what makes it safe. You're not just going to get a jerk like making a remark, because they're not going to subscribe, right?
Right. They're not there for just the beer. Right?
These are my music's friends, my songs.
Yeah.
And that's so
nice.
Good. Yeah.
So are you exploring or discovering ways to do things differently in Patreon for this particular group of people?
Yeah. So the one of the things I'm doing is I'm doing a monthly, I call it a mini gig, because I'm just in my home right here in my studio room. And what I love is, because these are kind of my, long time devoted followers, they appreciate hearing my really rare stuff. So when I play a show, I kind of have to curate the set list for everyone who's at the show. I like to play some sort of, you might call them greatest hits. The people they don't want to come to my show and not hear London Rain, right? So I play a combination of songs through my catalog. But when I'm doing these Patreon gigs, I can play my old rare B-sides, and that's fun for me. I actually have to go back and relearn them because it's been so long since.
Yeah.
And the people who are on Patreon are the ones who really want to hear that stuff. They want to hear the obscure stuff that maybe they've been listening to, but they've never heard at one of my shows. So it's kind of like, we're sharing the rare stuff, and then I'm also, because there's that trust that we just spoke of. I feel like I can share like unreleased tracks from the past that I wouldn't release them publicly, but on Patreon, I can do that because it's kind of like I say, my friends.
Yeah. Wow, that's neat. That's great. So the couple interesting comments coming through. One is from Chris Pittman. He says, the Siren record really helped me through the most emotionally stressful period of my life. That's a great comment.
I mean, honestly, every time I hear something like that, it means so much. I'll never get tired of hearing that. It's like, that's huge. That's huge. And I'm so glad. That's like an honor for me that my music helped you. So thanks.
Nice. Yeah. And another question for Heather from Knox Looks. What painters do you admire, and have they ever influenced your compositions? This is from Jack in Los Angeles.
Okay. Gosh. Well, we were just talking about Chagall before we came on. And I would say I love figurative, imaginative paintings like that. And I don't know. I kind of like De Chirico, and I don't know. Again, it's kind of just like something I do without thinking too much. Sometimes turning off the thinking brain is the best. The
Yeah.
best when it comes to art. Just switch out the
So
intellect and
I've got a question about your songs. Do you have a sort of a film track that goes with each of your verses, or do you have sort of painterly images that remind you where you are in the song, or when you're singing them, are you just working with the words and the music? And I ask this because I definitely have images and sort of video tracks of what I'm picturing happening.
No, I don't think I work that way. Although I would say I I put a lot of visual imagery into my songs, but that's coming more from a feeling. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting question. It's interesting that you see videos in your mind. I like
Well, just sort of
that.
scenes. I've got scenes. So when I'm working through the song, I can always just sort of step into the scene. Like I have things memorized in different ways, and that's one of the ways that the song is memorized. You know,
Right.
you sort of have a physical memory of the song and the
Oh, I see. After the fact, you mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes. No, that for sure. For sure, yes. And because you see, the imagery comes to me sometimes without realizing it. I mean, say for instance, one of my better known songs, Walk This World. Sometimes, so this imagery just came to me and I was writing it down. It's not like I'm thinking about green valleys and it's
yeah,
like what I find fascinating about songs is that sometimes you learn stuff about yourself after you've written it.
yeah,
You don't even know the intention always behind a song, because there is this great power of the subconscious, which you're
yeah.
opening when you write. Um, so yeah, again, fascinating.
Yeah. You were talking about the gift of the melody, and there's also the gift of the meaning that comes up with it. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's like you learn from your own writing, and that's what's interesting to me. It's like that's why I always call it. It's part of processing life to me. So it's not only that I'm processing what I know I've been through, but I'm also processing what I don't understand yet.
Yeah.
And the song kind of is it's kind of like dreams. We dream, and it's our subconscious giving us messages about what we need to look at in our life, or what we need to go deeper into. And songs can be like that too. And it's kind of this combination between bringing our craft, our creativity, our intellect, but then also this like source
Yeah.
of the subconscious. So yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Nicely said. So you've been working on a lot of different things and also putting together a tour for this fall in Europe. How is that going?
Well, it's really I don't actually know at this point in time. I'm just all fingers crossed that it's going to go ahead. It seems like everything's changing moment to moment, and
Yeah.
I have to just leave that up to my management and my agent to sort that out. It's complicated because there are quite a few countries in the tour, and they all have different regulations. Some are canceling shows or postponing.
Yeah.
Some are having only a third capacity, and then some are open, and it's just it's actually quite a mess for all
Yeah.
artists right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting to hear whether things have to be postponed. Which, gosh, I'm so looking forward to doing this tour,
Yeah.
and it's really an exciting one for me because. Well, not only have I not been out there in a while, I'm so looking forward to playing live, because that's, we talk about the connection on something like Patreon, and that's wonderful, but there's nothing like being in a room with people and feeling that energy and giving that, and there's something that happens, I'm guessing for every artist. I can only speak for myself, but when I go out on stage, it's like this incredible surge of energy, and like talk about opening. It's like something just comes through me, and I feel empowered in a
Mm.
way that is very separate to a kind of ego power. It's more like just essence. It's like spirit. It's like I feel like I'm more alive than I've ever been when I'm on stage. And it's so fascinating to me because there'll be nights when I'm exhausted and I just don't feel great, or I feel like shitty about myself, low self-esteem or whatever. And I'll just be like, oh, I can't do this, and you have to, because there's people waiting in their seat. And so you're kind of, pushed onto the stage by your tour manager.
Yeah.
You go out there and you start the music, and suddenly that thing happens that I just, it's like, this is what I'm here on the planet to be doing. And that's what I know in those moments. I'm like, this is why I'm here, is to play music, to sing for people, because that is what I can do. That's my contribution. And it feels good too.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Priscilla Feenbergen says, fingers crossed indeed to see you in church in Rotterdam. So,
in Rotterdam, yes. I remember that church. I played there before. And it's beautiful, and it's kind of in the round. There's people, on all sides. And so, yes, I really hope I'll be there too. Thank you.
And so one more question from Andre. This is changing the subject completely. He asks, when you were young and growing up and sailing on Moon, love the song about her, by the way, I take it you were homeschooled. Did you ever think you missed out on interactions with others, or did your life offer you other compensations?
Oh, great question. At the time, I thought I was missing out because I didn't really want to leave my school and my friends. When you're 11 years old, that's your whole world. And I was like, we're doing what? We're moving on a boat, and is a whale going to knock us over? And, and no, I was kind of scared and didn't want to leave. And it wasn't sort of till we'd been 6 months sailing that I started to really relax and enjoy it. And but I think there was definitely times when I felt I was missing out still, because we didn't have our friends, and had my sister, and we're very close. And so both, it was amazing. And now, of course, I look back at it and think, my God, that was the best formative experience I could have ever had. It taught me humility. It taught me a love of nature. It taught me how to be adaptable and resilient. And so it was amazing. But at the time, it was a mixed.
Yeah, for sure. How long was that?
So it was like 3.5 years.
Wow. Yeah. So that is a very unique moment in your childhood. I'm sure there's probably a network of people who have grown up that way, but most people don't.
Yeah. And it influenced me to homeschool my son, which I did up until he was 8 or 9, because I wanted to give him that freedom as a child. I think there is so much learning that happens just experientially, not in a classroom. And I think especially when they're young, it's so wonderful to give kids just play freedom, because I think that's how their imaginations are enriched, and they learn through play. You have to give them stimulation. They can't just be in a room, to take them out in nature. So I did that with my son. And of course, he came on the road with me. So that was wonderful. So all those years we were homeschooling, he would come to Europe and just get to see all these amazing countries and meet so many different people. And while I was doing my interviews, sound checks, gigs, his dad would be taking him to museums and parks and playgrounds and zoos and those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's pretty irreplaceable, those kinds of experiences when you're a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. So do you have experiences from your childhood that come up again and again in your painting or your writing or your songwriting?
I mean, not specifically, but I think that the connection that I made with the natural world back then is what really infiltrates my music. And, that will always be a huge element, not only in my music, but just in my life, is maintaining that connection. It's what gives me my sense of spirituality, I guess, and sense of purpose. And there's a song on my last record called Rewild Me, and I think that really sums up how I feel about nature and the importance of it in my work and my life.
So for you with nature, are you like an amateur biologist? Do you know the names of everything? Do you know how systems work? Or
only just very basically. No, it's more just an intuitive kind of engagement,
through walking and hiking and swimming and being present.
Yeah. I walk every day, and that just grounds me. And swimming. I live. It's all around me. So
yeah.
I could not live in a city again. I mean, maybe for like a month, but I couldn't permanently live in a city. It's just not my makeup. I mean, it was great when I was in my 20s and 30s in London. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I need that stimulation and inspiration. And I love like going to New York now or London and getting an injection of that.
Exactly.
Energy. Yeah. Just incredible. But for my everyday life, I need to be more, in the natural world.
Good. So what do you think you're going to be working on next? What's your next chapter?
It's funny. I don't really know. I was talking to someone about this the other day. People say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or I'm such a live in the present kind of person that I don't know if that's a weird thing, but I don't really think beyond the next 6 months.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm just counting on the tour. And I'm working towards that. It's the first time that I'm going to be on stage alone. I've never done that.
Okay.
So I set that challenge for myself because I like to push myself to do things differently, whether it's making a record or playing live. And so even though it terrifies me, I want to do it. And I've been working a lot on my piano playing. And so that I'm going to have different, instruments that I play. And, one of the things that I have evolved over the years that has evolved naturally is that in the beginning, I used to be terrified of the crowd. I used to be, I feel so free when I sing and play, but in between songs, I would be like a rabbit in the headlights. And I would actually say to my band, please just start the next song really quickly. I don't want there to be gaps. And because I was so shy with the crowd. And I discovered later that people thought I was really unfriendly with the crowd. And that devastated me but I understood it. I got it. It was like I didn't talk to them, but it was out of fear. And so that's something that has really changed a lot, is that I'm way more relaxed. and I see, I'm able to talk to people, and this is like Patreon, it's like I have this wonderful connection. So I'm looking forward to the shows where I just I'm on my own on stage, and just communicate and talk to people as well, and tell them things about the songs, and that'll be really an interesting, challenging tour for me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. And it sounds like you've got a lot of people who really want this to happen. So I'm hoping that the tour does go ahead, and just to keep in mind that everything is changing every single day, all the border regulations and the venue regulations. So it'll probably happen.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to us and to share a little bit about sort of a window into your world. It's amazing. It's wonderful to hear from you. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, what is your superpower?
My superpower? Gosh, I don't think of myself as superpowered, but in any way. But I mean, I guess what it maybe is distilling emotion. Maybe I'm an alchemist.
Oh, I like that. Excellent. Beautiful. Very good. Well, for those of you who joined us for the live conversation, it was great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow Heather Nova, find her Patreon account. She's got all the information on her website, heathernova.com. And thanks. It was great to see all of you, and see you next time.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining in. And Hannah, thank you so much. It was really lovely talking with you.
Yeah, this was fun. See you guys later.